Hello dear chess lovers, today I will show you an important middle game pattern that recurs in different positions, and that has to do with cementing our knights, stabilizing our knights on good squares that they cannot be repelled easily. This middle game pattern is a very crucial one. Knights are short range pieces. They like to be staying on beautiful outposts or weak squares, especially in the center of the board or closer center of the board, where they cannot be dislodged by the enemy pawns, right? So this video, I will show you different patterns from different openings, for example, King's Indian, French, or Caro-Kann patterns, to highlight how this concept of stabilizing a beautiful square for the knight and keeping it there using our pawns can be a very effective tool, can really improve your middle game play, all right? For example, as a startup position, the knight on f6 is under fire. If I ask you, for example, to plan your next two moves in this position with black, how would you play this endgame with black? I'm pretty sure if you spend some time here, you would notice that knight d5 is a good move. Tempo on the bishop, the knight sits on this d5 square. But notice after bishop d2, white wants to play c4 and repel your beautiful knight from that post. So please tell me one very logical move for black in this position that stabilizes your knight on d5 and the move is b5, right? There are different permutations of this idea, but the general logic is the same. You want to keep your knight on this beautiful square on d5. It's not an outpost yet because theoretically white can play c4 still and repel your knight, but notice that after b5 it became very difficult for white to really engineer the move c4, place a pawn on c4 to chase away your knight on d5. So you play b5 for the sole purpose, I would say, to keep your knight beautifully placed on d5. That's a stabilizing move, that there are different variations of the same idea, and this pattern must be internalized by strong players, right? Chess expertise mostly relies on pattern recognition, building up those important middle game chunks and patterns in your long-term memories gives you easy access to see those moves directly in your games. I'm sure Magnus Carlsen doesn't take any time to see this mini plan. And that's a mini plan. Yes, you first improve your knight and then stabilize your knight on that central square. Most Grandmaster games involve short operations, such mini plans, instead of obscure and long calculations like 10 moves ahead search, because there's a layman thinking, it's wrong, that people think that grandmasters are great in calculating 25 moves deep and that's what separates them. No, what we know scientifically is that they are great in short calculations and noticing best moves directly without even thinking, right? That's a surprising finding. That difference between grandmasters and, let's say, strong intermediate players or even candidate masters is their easy access to find those ideas effortlessly in their games. And the reason is, of course, they stored so many beautiful chess patterns, useful chess patterns, which give them easy access on their working memories while they're playing games. Now, King's Indian position on the board. King's Indian players, I'm sure you know the mini plan by heart. If you study deeply your openings, if you look at some model games, I'm sure what I will show you right now in next two moves will come naturally to you. I like to play white is still slightly better because of extra space, right? e4 and c4 pawns are giving them good space in the center of the board, but black will have nice ways to fight back in this position. And the first prompt for you is knight on d7. Knight doesn't do much on d7. There's an improvement potential for the piece. It also blocks your bishop, right? It will be nice to move the knight on d7, but where and what could be the follow-up from that square, guys? Please stop the video and try to find the good plan for black. And again, for strong King's Indian players, this comes effortlessly, this idea. You go knight c5 first, you hit the pawn on e4, right? Right now there are three attackers on that pawn, and let's say white defends it with rook e1. What's the next move for black? Very logical follow-up. How do you keep your knight on c5? The move is a5, guys. Beautiful, stabilizing your knight on c5. You play a5, very standard operation in the King's Indian, to stop the move b4, right? Because one of the goals for white ultimately in this position will be to chase away your knight, which is pressurizing the white center on e4. So it's a very good follow-up to play a5, stabilize your knight. If white plays the move a3 to, let's say, highlight a future rook b1 and b4. It doesn't work directly because takes and the rook will be hanging. But if they highlight this idea of b4, what's the next move? Again, this connects to today's episode, folks. Beautiful follow-up, very typical. The move is a4. a4 really shuts down on this plan of b4 altogether, stabilizes your knight even more. The knight is extremely happy to see this transformation of the structure. Your knight also defends the pawn on a4, by the way. White cannot put more pressure on that pawn. Also, notice, a4 move gives you this b3 outpost as well. Just in case the knight can later use that square, the knight became happy as a result. That's why a3 is a very wrong follow-up for white. White should play something else in this position, and they should really wait with the move a3. Sometimes you first play a5. It looks ridiculous. Why are we playing this move? Looks like there's no reason. Well, the follow-up is knight c5. Now it makes sense, right? Your opening moves make sense in light of those mini plans, middle game plans. Knight c5 is coming on the next turn, and it will create a beautiful knight on c5 with an influence in the center of the board as well. Now we talk about French defense. It's a very typical, let's say, French endgame. French pawn structure looks like this, guys, from e6, from f7, e6 to d5 pawn chain. The good thing is that black already exchanged off the terrible French bishop. That's a good endgame for black for that very reason, actually. Well, there's also, of course, the pawn on d4 that is weak. Black already targets that pawn, thus tying down the white knights. How do we improve? Please find a good mini plan to further improve this position with the black pieces. You will apply the chunk I'm teaching you beautifully to this position, folks. Please stop the video, then we are talking. Knight on h6 does nothing. That's your, let's say, worst place piece. And the plan involves knight f5 first to hit the pawn on d4, right? Right now there's triple attackers on that pawn. And once white defends that pawn, what's the next move? That's the key follow-up. How do you stabilize and cement your knight on f5? And the cementing move is a very typical h5. h5 really helps your knight, folks. Can you see it? You're stopping white from pushing g4, and now the knight becomes a very happy camper. The knight on f5 is so happy because a piece can get happy in chess by simply putting pressure on the weak pawn. Why? Because by doing so, you are paralyzing and tying down the opponent's pieces on that pawn. All three minor pieces for white are very sad because their sole function in this world is to babysit the weak pawn on d4. Three attackers, three defenders. This means black keeps control. It's black who dictates the game. Black can either keep the tension, keep them tied down the pawn, or they can create a second front, right? That gives control to black in this position. That's why black simply is better. Not a winning advantage yet, but let's say 0.5 advantage to black for good reason. And we can understand this by looking at the pieces, by asking ourselves how happy they are for both games. But black created the condition by this typical chunk and mini plan, right? Chess expertise mostly involves, as I said, those small operations. You can't see everything until the end from here. What you can do is to improve your position a little bit by using three-ply calculations with such mini plans. But of course, knowing crucial chess patterns. In this case, the pattern of cementing our knight on f5 comes very handy. Again, grandmasters see this in nanoseconds because they've seen these patterns many times before. This comes so easily to a strong player's eye. But if you have never seen this pattern before, then you can find this by a random move search. This will overwhelm your working memories, especially for beginners. They can get overwhelmed because there's so much information that you can extract from the board right now, right? So by learning those patterns, we are making our calculation process much more efficient. So our working memory slots are freed to do other operations. And again, let's look at this position. Slight deviation from what we saw. Knight on f5 is a beautiful piece. We played h5 to stabilize the piece. What if white plays the move h3 and highlight the move g4 to repel our beautiful knight? Can you see a beautiful, maybe winning positional resource for black? Very standard, very typical. You must know this pattern as well. h4 makes the knight even happier, completely stabilizes the knight on f5 because right now there is no way for white to play g4 and kick our knight on f5. h4, you can also call it like a deep freeze. It also creates the weakness on g2. That pawn became a backward pawn in its position. Plus, you gave yourself a square on g3 as well. Maybe in a future stage of this game, the knight can hop to g3 as well, right? Look, the pawn is well guarded. It's not going to be attacked and taken by the white pieces at all. And its position is very much guarded by the black pieces. And the knight, most importantly, became an excellent piece, also putting pressure here on that pawn, obviously, which is tying down the white knights, and black still gets a beautiful position. Maybe you can make moves like this to attack the pawn even more, and black is definitely clearly better in this position. Instead, white should probably choose the slow turtle walk pattern to first play g3 and then h3 and then play g4 to chase away our beautiful knight from f5. This was the more standard way of repelling our piece. I made a video about this concept on YouTube. The turtle walk, slow but efficient pattern in chess can apply for white, but of course it will take a long time for white to engineer this, and black will still find good ways to fight and claim an advantage in this position. Black to play in this position, folks. Can you apply the same lesson to this position? There's a deeper similarity to what we saw before and this one. Black to play, how would you play with the black pieces? There's only one move that gives you the advantage, and you're a great player, folks, if you want to move f4. f4 cements your beautiful knight on e5, right? By playing f4, you're stopping white from playing f4 and chase away your beautiful knight from e5. Knight's an excellent piece on e5. White only is a light square bishop that cannot deal with your knight on e5. There is no exchange potential for white in this position for that knight. So knight dominates the bishop, as we say. And in the long run, you can even, well, advance the pawns on the king side even more, open up lines, and maybe attack the white king in this position. So this multifunctional move also gives you that potential. But most importantly, if you, for example, wait, white will play the move f4 in its position and chase away your knight from that post. Okay, I will slowly give you a segue for the homework position, but asking you to find a solution here will be maybe too complex for many of you. So I will give you the first prompt. We will actually observe the situation, see how grim this position could be for white if we don't act right now. White has only one move that keeps them in the game in this knight ending. First of all, look at the situation. The knight on the rim is dim in this case. That pawn on d4 is completely freezing that knight. If f3, can you see the good move for black, folks? Well, g3 kills the knight even more in this position. The knight has no potential whatsoever on the king side. So the only potential lies on the queen side. But if you make the most natural move, knight b2, you tell me the best move for black. Black has one way to bury that knight. I made an entire course about this. The art of burying pieces. Fianchetto knights can be buried by pawns in chess. That b5 pawn is literally entombing your knight on b2. After a4, obviously they will keep the pawn on b5 by playing a6. And this knight, if you come back to your senses, you can make 25 moves in a row with this knight. The knight cannot improve. You cannot locate the knight to a safe spot from the structure. The knight is dead. And the most peculiar things about knights is that they are very particular pieces. It makes all the difference in the world on which exact square the knight is placed. If the knight, let's say, would be on d2 or e2 in this position, the knight could be a good piece. Can do this, can do that, right? But if you place the knight on b2, the knight has no future potential whatsoever in this position. So that scenario must be avoided by white. That's why you need to find the only move in this position that secures a good spot for your knight in this position. Okay? I hope my prompt was useful for you. I hope that knowing only one solution can also help to find the best defense for white. You do that move to secure and stabilize the knight on a particularly useful square to hold this position. I hope you like this video, folks. Please check this video for further information about knights. I made an entire video about what knights like in chess, strategic chunks and patterns that favor the knights, knights' dreams and desires positionally that you can learn and you can apply to your games. I'm here to teach you crucial chess patterns to improve and make our calculation much more efficient. So those chunks can be accessible directly given certain patterns on the board, so your working memory slots are open for more useful operations. working memory is a bottleneck in human cognition. We can process maybe 3 to 4 information at a time when we are processing chess or anything in life. That's a crucial bottleneck. By learning those chunks, you're making things much more easier on yourself, so you don't get overloaded. Your working memory doesn't get overloaded by the complex jungle of chess, right? Beginners look at the chessboard, they see random pieces and pawns scattered on the board. This makes the entire process much more difficult, right? There's simply much more information to be processed for beginner's mind. But as you grow stronger, then you group certain things as single units of information. And that's what my videos are offering you. That's one of the overarching goals of my channel as well, folks. But I need your support to produce content into the future. So please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and share my channel elsewhere in the world so more people can notice it. That will be important for me to produce content regularly for you to get better in this beautiful game. Catch you later.